The Starseeker glided smoothly through the vastness of space, leaving behind the known universe as it moved toward the edge of uncharted territory. Captain Elara Vance stood at the helm, her hands steady on the controls, her eyes fixed on the viewports ahead. The stars shimmered in the distance, distant galaxies swirling in the cold expanse. The hum of the ship's engines filled the bridge, a comforting sound as the crew prepared for the next phase of their mission. "Course set," Elara said, her voice calm and composed, betraying none of the anticipation building in her chest. Commander Jack Soren moved beside her, adjusting the ship's systems. "All systems are green, Captain. We're ready for the jump." The rest of the crew stood at their stations, eyes glued to their monitors. The sense of purpose was palpable. "Let's make history," Elara said, a faint grin on her face. With a flick of her wrist, she initiated the jump sequence. The Starseeker surged forward into the unknown. As the Starseeker cruised deeper into the unknown, the crew kept a sharp watch on their instruments. Lieutenant Aaron Cole, stationed at the sensor array, spoke up, his voice tense. "Captain, we're receiving strange readings. There's something ahead, something massive." Captain Vance turned toward him, her brow furrowed. "What do you mean by massive?" Aaron pointed at his screen. "It's too large to be a normal celestial body, and it doesn't match anything in the database. It's emitting an energy signature unlike anything we've seen." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "We'll get a closer look," Vance said firmly. "Prepare for a slow approach. Whatever it is, we need to understand it." Commander Soren nodded, his fingers already working the controls. "Aye, Captain, moving into position now." The ship shifted course, the unknown object looming in the distance. The Starseeker edged closer to the mysterious object, its sheer size becoming more apparent as they approached. "The readings are stabilizing, Captain," Lieutenant Aaron Cole reported, his voice filled with a mix of relief and curiosity. "But it's unlike anything we've encountered. It's almost as if it's waiting for us." Captain Vance stood in front of the viewport, her eyes scanning the object that now filled the screen. It seemed to pulse with an eerie, rhythmic glow. "Prepare a scan of the object's surface," she commanded, her tone steady but filled with unspoken tension. "Let's see what we're dealing with." Commander Jack Soren activated the ship's long-range sensors, watching the data stream in on his console. "It's emitting a low-frequency signal, Captain. It's consistent, almost like a beacon." "A beacon?" Vance repeated, her voice low. "Then it wants us to find it." The crew stood in silence, a sense of foreboding hanging over them, as the ship moved ever closer to the unknown object. The object loomed larger as the Starseeker neared it, the pulsating light intensifying. "We're within scanning range, Captain," Commander Soren said, his voice tight with focus. "Initiating the scan now." The bridge fell silent, except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. The object's surface seemed to shimmer as the scan completed. "I'm getting strange readings," Soren continued. "The object's surface is metallic, but it doesn't respond to our usual scans. It's almost impervious to detection." Vance's expression hardened. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It could be a natural phenomenon, but it's too symmetrical to be just that," Soren replied. "It's artificial, and it's definitely active." A low hum reverberated through the ship as the object's glow increased. "Get ready," Vance said, her voice steady but urgent. "We don't know what will happen next." As the Starseeker hovered in front of the massive object, the energy field around it began to ripple, suggesting the object might be more than just an enigmatic relic. It might be alive. Suddenly, the object emitted a low-frequency pulse that reverberated through the ship. "What's happening?" one of the crew members shouted. The Starseeker's systems flickered, and the ship groaned under the pressure. "Shields are holding," Soren quickly reported, his fingers flying over the controls. "But the pulse, it's draining energy from our systems." Captain Vance's face was pale as she assessed the situation. "We need to cut power to non-essential systems," she ordered. "Keep the shields up and prepare for evasive maneuvers if necessary." The energy pulse from the object intensified, surrounding the Starseeker in a field of radiant light. "I think it's trying to communicate," Aaron said, his voice filled with awe. "It's sending out a message. Is it hostile?" Vance asked, her gaze fixed on the shimmering object. "Not sure yet," Aaron replied. "But whatever it is, we can't stay here much longer." Vance nodded, her jaw set. "We'll move out slowly, keep the shields at maximum, and get as much data as we can." The Starseeker remained in a precarious orbit around the massive, glowing object, its systems struggling to stay online due to the strange energy interference. "We need to figure out what this thing is," Captain Vance said, her voice determined but tense. "The longer we stay in its proximity, the more it drains from us." Lieutenant Aaron Cole, seated at the sensor array, scanned the object again. "The readings are stable now, but it's still emitting that pulse. It's like it's scanning us, responding to our presence. Could it be a weapon?" Commander Jack Soren asked, his eyes on the readouts. "I'm not sure," Vance replied. "But it feels like something alive, almost aware of us. I want to know what it's doing and why it's here." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They had come here to explore the unknown, but now they were faced with an enigma that might be far more dangerous than they anticipated. "We'll proceed with caution," Vance ordered. "Prepare for an EVA mission. We're getting closer to understanding this thing, but we need more data." Captain Vance led a small team, including Commander Soren and Lieutenant Cole, to prepare for an EVA mission. The airlock door opened with a soft hiss, and they stepped into the vacuum of space, tethered to the Starseeker. "This is it," Vance said, her voice crackling over the comms as she floated toward the object. "Stay close. We don't know what kind of anomalies we might encounter." The glow from the object illuminated their spacesuits as they approached its surface. Aaron was the first to speak. "The closer we get, the more intense the energy readings become. It's almost like it's alive." The team moved carefully, securing their tether lines and adjusting their orientation as they glided toward the metallic surface of the object. "Let's take it slow," Soren advised, his voice calm but serious. The shimmering surface of the object seemed to pulse with their every movement. It wasn't just a passive anomaly, it was watching them, almost sentient in nature. "I think it's time to get inside," Vance said, her voice tinged with a mix of excitement and caution. The crew reached the surface of the object and began to examine it closely. "It's like nothing we've ever seen before," Aaron remarked, scanning the surface with his tools. "The metal is unlike anything in our database, and there's an intricate pattern of energy signatures running through it." Vance knelt to examine a section of the object, her hand brushing against the smooth, glowing surface. "It feels warm to the touch," she noted. "This isn't just a ship or a structure. It feels organic." The team gathered around, each of them aware of the magnitude of what they were witnessing. "Could it be a communication device?" Soren asked, his voice steady but filled with intrigue. "Possibly," Vance replied. "But the fact that it's pulsing with energy means it's far from dormant. We need to figure out its purpose before we do anything else." The surface of the object began to hum faintly as the crew continued their investigation, as though reacting to their presence. It was clear this was no ordinary discovery. As the crew continued their investigation, the object suddenly emitted a soft hum, and the surface in front of them shifted. A section of the metal began to retract, revealing a dark, cylindrical opening. "What just happened?" Soren asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Vance's eyes narrowed. "It's reacting to us, but we're not sure how or why." The crew exchanged glances, their nervous tension palpable. "We came here to uncover the unknown," Vance said, stepping toward the opening. "And it seems like it's opening a door for us." She paused, her voice steady. "We don't know what's inside, but we need to find out." Aaron was the first to approach the opening, his scanner ready. "The energy readings are spiking," he said, his voice tight. "Whatever this is, it's definitely not benign. No turning back now," Vance said firmly. "Let's go." As they stepped forward, the dark interior of the object seemed to pull them in, its depths cloaked in mystery. Inside the object, the crew stepped cautiously through the dark corridor, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The walls were smooth and metallic, covered with strange, pulsating lights that seemed to react to their movements. "This is unreal," Aaron said, his voice filled with awe. "It's like walking through a living organism." "Yeah." Vance nodded, her eyes scanning the surroundings. "What?" "We need to stay focused. We don't know what's ahead." As they moved deeper, the lights along the walls flickered, casting strange shadows on the floor. Suddenly, the corridor opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling disappearing into the darkness. At the center of the room stood a massive glowing core, suspended in midair. It pulsed with energy, and the temperature in the room seemed to rise. "That's the heart of it," Vance said quietly. "We found the source." The crew gathered around, their faces filled with both awe and fear. The core seemed to be alive, its light growing brighter as they approached. "Stay alert," Vance warned. "We're not alone." The crew gathered in the vast chamber around the glowing core, its pulse growing stronger by the second. "This is the heart of the object," Captain Vance said, her voice filled with awe and a hint of caution. "We have no idea what it could be, but we need to approach carefully." The core emitted a low hum, its light flickering in rhythm with the pulse. Aaron Cole, standing closest to the core, was scanning it with his instruments. "I'm picking up massive energy fluctuations," he said, his voice tight. "But it's not just power, it's information, like a signal being transmitted." Commander Soren, his eyes narrowed in thought, turned to Vance. "Could it be some kind of communication device?" Vance pondered for a moment. "It's possible, but we have no way of knowing who or what it's communicating with." The crew exchanged looks, tension hanging in the air. "Let's try to find out," Vance said, stepping forward, determined. "We're getting closer to understanding this, but we need more data." As the crew continued their investigation, the hum from the core grew louder, and the energy around them seemed to intensify. "The fluctuations are increasing," Aaron said, his scanner beeping rapidly. "It's like the core is charging up." Commander Soren stepped forward, looking at the strange symbols carved into the walls. "I think these are some sort of data patterns, but they're beyond our understanding. It's like they're waiting for something." "Like what?" Aaron asked. Soren hesitated before replying. "Maybe they're waiting for us to make contact, or maybe it's preparing to send something." Vance's gaze hardened. "Whatever it is, we need to be ready. We came here to understand, but we don't know what kind of response we'll get." The hum intensified once again, now vibrating through the floor, and a beam of light shot from the core, striking the ceiling. The crew stumbled back in surprise. "What is it doing?" Aaron asked, his voice strained. "I don't know," Vance said, her voice tense. "But we need to figure it out. Fast." Suddenly, the beam from the core expanded, filling the chamber with a blinding light. The crew shielded their eyes, and the air seemed to hum with power. "What's happening?" Aaron shouted over the roar of the energy. The light from the core flickered, and then stabilized, creating a clear, bright path from the center of the chamber to the far wall. "This is it," Vance said, her voice low. "It's opening a portal." The crew watched in stunned silence as the light from the core continued to pulse, drawing them toward it. "We need to approach carefully," Vance ordered. "It could be a gateway to something else, or it could be a trap." Aaron stepped closer to the beam, his eyes wide with curiosity and fear. "This is unlike anything we've seen. We might be looking at a new way of traveling through space, or even between dimensions." Vance's gaze never left the beam. "Whatever it is, we're going to find out. Stay close, and be ready for anything." As the crew slowly approached the beam, a faint hum filled the room. The light from the core seemed to warp the space around it, creating a shimmering effect in the air. "This is incredible," Aaron muttered, his eyes fixed on the glowing portal. "If this is a form of transportation, it could be the key to unlocking so much of the universe. Think about the places we could visit, the knowledge we could gain." Commander Soren stepped forward, his voice measured. "If it's safe, we could make history. But we don't know what kind of risks are involved. We need to proceed with extreme caution." "Agreed," Vance said. "We don't fully understand what this is yet, but we're about to find out." "Aaron, I want you to take a closer scan of the beam. Figure out what it's made of. As Aaron adjusted his scanner, the hum grew louder, and the beam of light flickered, expanding slightly as if responding to his presence. It's reacting to us, he said. The energy is becoming more concentrated. As the beam's energy intensified, the core began to hum more violently, and the entire chamber seemed to resonate with the power emanating from it. We need to back up, Soren shouted, his voice rising in urgency. But before the crew could react, the beam suddenly expanded outward, surrounding them in a protective field of energy. This is not a normal portal, Aaron said, his voice filled with awe. This is some kind of barrier. It's holding us in place, Vance said, her eyes wide. Whatever this is, it's not letting us leave. The light from the beam became blinding, and the crew's suits began to vibrate with the energy. We're being pulled in, Aaron cried. The light grew brighter, and a pressure began to build in the room. Brace yourselves, Vance ordered. But before they could do anything, the pressure reached its peak, and the world around them went dark. The Starseeker crew found themselves in an entirely new environment, the blinding light from the core having completely enveloped them. As the light finally faded, they found themselves standing in an alien landscape, completely disoriented. The air around them was thick with strange energies, and the sky above was swirling with colors they had never seen before. Where are we? Commander Soren whispered, his voice strained. This isn't possible. Captain Vance stood still, her hand on her helmet as she scanned the area. It looks like we're not in the same space anymore, she said, her voice uncertain but calm. This could be a different dimension, or some kind of pocket of reality. Lieutenant Aaron Cole was already at his scanner, his eyes wide with disbelief. I don't know how to explain it, but the readings are off the charts. We're definitely not in normal spacetime. The crew gathered around, each looking at the alien world they had just entered. We need to keep our wits about us, Vance said, her tone firm. Let's explore and see if we can find any answers. As the crew ventured deeper into the alien landscape, they noticed something unusual. Huge structures rising in the distance, their surfaces covered with ancient-looking symbols. Those structures look like they were built by intelligent beings, Soren said, his voice low. We should investigate. Vance nodded. Keep your comms open, stay alert. The crew made their way toward the closest structure, their every step echoing in the strange, quiet landscape. As they approached, they saw that the walls of the structures shimmered, almost as if they were made of liquid metal. It's like nothing we've ever seen, Aaron said, his eyes scanning the surface with awe. The technology is beyond anything in our database. They reached the base of the structure, and Vance motioned for them to stop. This is where the answers lie, she said, her tone filled with determination. We need to find out who built this, and why. As the crew investigated the structure, they discovered a large circular door embedded in its side. The symbols around it glowed brighter as they approached, as if recognizing their presence. This must be some kind of entry point, Aaron said, examining the door. But there's no obvious way to open it. Vance stepped forward, her hand resting on the door. Let's see if we can activate it, she said, her voice steady. As she touched the door, the symbols around it began to pulse, and the door slowly started to open. A deep, mechanical sound echoed through the air. It's alive, Soren muttered. The door revealed a dark interior, and the crew hesitated for a moment. We're going in, Vance ordered. Stay close, and keep your weapons ready. With that, they entered the unknown, the door closing behind them as they moved deeper into the alien structure. The crew stepped into the interior of the structure, their boots echoing on the smooth metallic floor. The space inside was vast, with high ceilings that disappeared into darkness. Strange, glowing panels lined the walls, and a low hum filled the air. This place is like nothing we've ever seen, Aaron said, his voice reverberating in the empty space. The technology here is centuries, maybe millennia, ahead of ours. Keep your guard up, Vance said, her voice steady as she moved forward. We don't know what kind of systems or defenses this place has. As they ventured deeper into the structure, they came upon a large chamber, its center dominated by a pedestal with an object resting atop it. What is that? Soren asked, pointing toward the object. It glowed faintly, its surface smooth and metallic. I don't know, Vance said, her voice low. But we're about to find out. As the crew approached the pedestal, a sudden surge of energy filled the room, and the object atop the pedestal began to glow brighter. It's activating, Aaron said, his voice tense. Something's happening. The crew stepped back as the object levitated slightly, its light pulsing in rhythm with the energy around them. We've triggered something, Vance said, her eyes wide. I think it's reacting to us. Suddenly, a holographic display appeared in the air above the pedestal, displaying a series of alien symbols. It's a message, Soren said. But it's not in any language we know. The symbols shifted, and a low voice echoed through the room, speaking in a language no one understood. The crew exchanged confused glances. What's happening? Aaron asked. Is it trying to communicate? Vance stepped closer to the pedestal, her eyes fixed on the holographic symbols. We're about to find out. The crew stood before the holographic display, watching as the symbols danced and shifted in the air. The room was thick with tension, as the alien language flickered before them, its meaning still a mystery. We need to find a way to decode this, Aaron said, his eyes scanning the symbols. It's too complex for our standard translation protocols. We don't have time, Vance replied, her voice steady but urgent. We're on the clock. If this is a message, we need to understand it before it's too late. Commander Soren moved forward, his fingers brushing over the holographic symbols. These patterns, there's something familiar about them, but I can't place it. The symbols shifted again, forming a new, more intricate pattern. It's adapting to us, Aaron said, his voice tinged with awe. It's learning from our attempts to decode it. Vance's expression hardened. We need a breakthrough. Let's keep trying. We can't let this slip through our fingers. As the crew continued to study the symbols, a sudden change occurred. The holographic display flickered, and the symbols began to slow down. The low hum in the room grew louder, vibrating through the floor. What's happening? Aaron asked, his voice filled with concern. It's like it's reacting to us, Soren said, his fingers still hovering over the symbols. It's trying to communicate. Vance stepped forward, her eyes narrowed in concentration. Is it asking us something? She asked. Is this some kind of test? The symbols shifted again, forming a coherent phrase. I think it's a warning, Aaron said, his voice serious. We're on the verge of unlocking something, but it's not just a message, it's a consequence. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. A consequence? Vance repeated. What kind of consequence? The symbols shifted once more, revealing a new set of glowing characters. The room's hum intensified, and the crew knew that they were about to uncover something that could change everything. Suddenly, the entire structure seemed to shake. The lights in the chamber flickered, and the crew staggered as a powerful wave of energy radiated from the pedestal. What's going on? Soren shouted, bracing himself against the pedestal. Aaron's scanner went haywire, the readings flashing rapidly. This isn't just a message, it's a response. The core is activating. Vance's eyes widened. Activate the shields, she ordered. But it was too late. The energy surged outward, wrapping around them in a blinding flash. The crew was thrown back, their bodies tumbling across the chamber as the light from the pedestal enveloped them. When the light subsided, they found themselves standing in a completely different environment. The chamber was gone, replaced by a vast alien landscape stretching before them. The sky above was dark, filled with swirling clouds of energy. Where are we? Aaron asked, his voice trembling. This is not the same place. No, Vance replied, her voice grim. We're somewhere else, and we need to find out why. The crew stood on the surface of an alien world, disoriented and shaken by the sudden shift. The landscape stretched out before them, barren yet strangely alive. The sky above was filled with swirling clouds of energy, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with a faint glow. What just happened? Soren muttered, his eyes scanning the unfamiliar horizon. How did we get here? Vance took a deep breath and surveyed their surroundings. It looks like we've been transported somewhere. Some kind of different dimension, maybe. But we don't know how or why. Aaron checked his scanner, his eyes widening in disbelief. This is impossible. The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever is happening here, it's unlike anything we've encountered. Vance turned to the crew. We're here for answers, and we're not leaving until we have them. Stay close. Stay alert. As they moved forward, the ground beneath them trembled slightly, and the air seemed to hum with unseen power. Let's find out what this place really is, Vance said, her tone resolute. As the crew advanced, they came across a massive structure rising from the ground. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, an enormous, jagged spire made of dark metallic material, covered in the same glowing symbols they had seen in the chamber. This must be where the power is coming from, Aaron said, his voice filled with awe. The source of everything. The crew moved closer, their boots crunching on the strange terrain. As they reached the base of the spire, the symbols on its surface began to glow brighter, and a deep hum resonated from within. I don't like this, Soren muttered. Whatever it is, it's alive, and it's aware of us. Vance nodded. We need to find a way to communicate with it. This structure holds the key to everything. As they approached the base, the ground beneath them trembled once again. The spire seemed to respond to their presence, the symbols shifting and rearranging themselves in a pattern that seemed to beckon them forward. Stay sharp, Vance warned. We're about to enter the heart of this place. The crew of the Starseeker stood at the base of the towering spire, its dark metallic surface covered in shifting symbols. The eerie hum that resonated from the structure vibrated through their bodies, and the atmosphere around them felt charged with a powerful, almost oppressive energy. This is it, Captain Vance said, her voice steady despite the overwhelming sense of awe and fear. We need to figure out what this spire is and how it's connected to the object we found. Aaron scanned the spire with his tools, but his readings were still off the charts. The energy levels are beyond anything we've encountered, he said. I can't even get a full scan. It's like the spire is absorbing everything. Commander Soren frowned, his eyes narrowed in concentration. It's as if the spire itself is alive, reacting to us, he said. Vance looked up at the spire, her expression grim. We're not leaving until we understand what's happening here. Let's move forward, carefully. The crew approached the spire cautiously, each step heavy with the weight of uncertainty. As they neared the base, the ground beneath them began to tremble. Is the spire reacting to us? Aaron asked, his voice tense. It's like it's alive. Stay calm, Vance replied, her eyes scanning the structure. We need to keep our focus. The symbols on the spire's surface began to shift more rapidly, their light intensifying. It's trying to communicate, Soren said, his voice low. The symbols. They're changing. It's like it's responding to our presence. Vance nodded. Keep analyzing it. We need to know what it's saying. The crew continued to observe the structure, their minds racing with the possibilities. Suddenly, a deep, rumbling sound filled the air, and the spire began to glow brighter, almost as if it were preparing for something monumental. The rumbling intensified, and the air around the spire crackled with energy. It's happening, Aaron said, his voice barely audible over the noise. The spire is activating. Whatever it is, we're about to witness it. The symbols on the spire glowed so brightly now that it was almost blinding. We need to get out of here, Soren shouted, but Vance held up her hand. Wait, she said. Let's see what happens. The energy around the spire grew more intense, and the crew could feel the temperature rising. The ground beneath their feet began to crack, and a low mechanical hum filled the air. Suddenly, the spire's surface shifted, revealing a massive opening, dark and void-like, as if inviting them in. I think it's ready for us, Vance said, her voice steady but filled with awe. We've come this far. We have no choice but to enter. The crew moved cautiously toward the opening in the spire, their footsteps tentative as they crossed the unstable ground. This is it, Aaron said, his voice quiet, but filled with urgency. We're about to uncover something far beyond what we've seen before. Vance led the way, her eyes scanning the opening with a mixture of caution and resolve. Let's stay focused. We don't know what we'll find inside. As they entered the opening, the air shifted, and the temperature dropped. The walls inside the spire were covered in more glowing symbols, and the space around them felt vast, as if they were standing in the center of something ancient and powerful. "This isn't just technology," Soren said, his voice reverberating through the stillness. "This is a place of power, a conduit for something immense. Stay alert," Vance ordered. "We don't know what kind of defenses this place might have." The crew continued deeper into the spire, their footsteps echoing in the vast empty space. As they reached the center of the chamber, the symbols on the walls began to pulse more rapidly, and the temperature continued to drop. "I'm getting strange readings," Aaron said, his voice filled with concern. "The energy is unstable. We're not alone here. Stay sharp," Vance ordered, her eyes scanning the chamber for any signs of movement. Suddenly, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber, speaking in a language the crew couldn't understand. "What was that?" Soren whispered, his hand on his weapon. "Is it the spire communicating?" The voice grew louder, and the symbols on the walls began to shift, forming new patterns. "It's speaking to us," Aaron said. "But how do we respond?" "We don't have a choice," Vance replied, stepping forward. "We're about to face whatever this is. Let's see what it wants." The deep voice resonated through the chamber, filling the air with an otherworldly intensity. The symbols on the walls shifted, now forming intricate patterns that seemed to pulse, in sync with the hum of the spire. "What is this?" Aaron whispered, his eyes wide as he scanned the shifting symbols. "It's like it's trying to communicate, but it's not using words we can understand." "We have no choice," Captain Vance said, her voice calm but filled with determination. "We need to engage with whatever this is. We're here to uncover the truth." The voice echoed again, louder this time, and the ground beneath them trembled. "It's calling to us," Soren said, his voice uneasy. "But I can't figure out what it wants." Vance's eyes hardened. "It's not a choice. We're in the heart of this place. We either find out what it is, or we risk being lost forever." With that, the crew advanced, cautiously stepping forward into the center of the chamber, determined to face whatever was speaking to them. As the crew moved deeper into the chamber, the ground beneath them trembled more intensely. The voice continued to echo, now a steady rhythm. "This is it," Aaron said, his voice shaking slightly. "It's trying to establish contact. But how?" Vance's gaze was fixed on the patterns on the walls. "We don't have time to analyze every detail. We need to act." Suddenly, a blinding light filled the room, and the crew shielded their eyes. The symbols on the walls shifted rapidly, spinning around them in a dizzying pattern. "It's reacting to us," Soren shouted, his voice rising in alarm. "I don't think it's friendly." But Vance stood her ground, her eyes narrowed. "It's not hostile," she said, her voice steady. "It's trying to connect. We need to show that we're open to communication." She stepped forward, extending her hand toward the glowing symbols. "We're here to understand. Please, show us." The symbols on the walls stopped spinning, and the room fell into an eerie silence. For a moment, everything was still. Then the symbols began to form a coherent shape, slowly arranging themselves into a series of intricate, glowing patterns. The voice echoed once more, now softer, almost soothing. "It's giving us something," Aaron said, his voice filled with awe. "It's showing us what it wants." The glowing patterns slowly began to shift, revealing images, alien landscapes, ancient cities, and vast, star-filled skies. "These are visions," Vance said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's showing us its history, its purpose." The images grew clearer, and the crew saw the face of an ancient being, its features calm and wise. "This is the one who built the spire," Soren said, his voice full of realization. "It's not just a machine. It's a consciousness. It's trying to tell us something," Vance said, stepping closer. "Let's listen." The images continued to unfold before the crew, each scene revealing more of the ancient being's history. "It's telling us about its civilization," Aaron said, his voice quiet. "How it created the spires. How it connected to the stars. The last image showed the being standing in front of a massive star, its energy flowing through the spire like a conduit. "This is the key," Vance said. "The spire is more than just a structure. It's a bridge to a greater power, one that the ancient civilization controlled." The voice echoed again, now more urgent, as if urging the crew to act. "What does it want from us?" Soren asked, his voice tense. Vance stepped forward, her hand still extended toward the symbols. "It's showing us its final message. It's asking for our help, or perhaps offering us a choice." The room grew colder, and the crew could feel the weight of the moment. "We need to make a decision," Vance said. "Now." The room began to shake as the final message of the being echoed through the chamber. "It's a choice," Vance said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "The spire, the power, it's all tied to the ancient civilization. It's offering us the chance to control it, to use its power." The hum of the spire grew louder, and the symbols on the walls pulsed in unison, as if urging the crew to act. "What happens if we accept?" Aaron asked, his voice filled with trepidation. "We don't know," Vance replied. "But the spire might grant us access to unimaginable power, or it could destroy us." Commander Soren looked at the symbols on the walls, then back at Vance. "We can't make this decision lightly." Vance's eyes hardened. "I know, but we're the only ones who can decide. Whatever happens, we need to act now." The crew stood together, their minds racing with the weight of the decision before them. "It's time," Vance said, her voice resolute. "Let's see what we're capable of."